Well, that is going to scale directly with how long you were in a deep trench of focus for task A. But let's assume task A was something that was kind of light for you. Maybe you're just handling some email. Maybe you're talking to a coworker. Maybe you were at a board meeting and it was kind of light. The stuff was just, okay, you're used to this stuff. This is stuff that you do all the time. Now you're headed back to your desk, or you're headed to your next class, or perhaps you did a workout that morning and now you're going to head to your place of work, or maybe you're leaving work and you're going to engage with family. And you need to switch all these cognitive operations. You need to dump the stuff that you were just doing cognitively, and you now need to do a bunch of other things. Context is switching. Task is switching. Well, just ask yourself, how deeply was I entrenched in that other activity? Was my mind flitting to other things? Or if I was in a deep trench of attention for that given thing, well, then you should give yourself slightly longer for this transition period, maybe 5 or even 10 minutes if you have that time. But even if you give yourself as short as 60 to 90 seconds of transition and you just designate it, as transition, you're going to benefit in terms of your ability to do the next task. So to be very clear, if you were in kind of a light task or something that didn't have much cognitive demand, well, then the transition period can be fairly short. It can be just a couple of minutes. Rather, if you were in a deep trench of attention, you're really engaged in that first task, I suggest giving yourself a couple of minutes or more, maybe as much as 5 to 10 minutes. But you might not have that much time, in which case give yourself any kind of transition, even if it's 10 seconds. Right? I certainly have had times in my life, in particular when I was a new assistant professor, meaning before I got tenure, where I remember sitting down to work on a grant. I'd get 2 lines out, someone would knock on the door. Hey, where are the 30 mil syringes? Where do we keep the buffers? Or, where's the, did we get this thing in? Okay. And then I'd have to shift my attention. I'd go back to writing and then be, distracted by something else again, which is not to say that people were distracting me unfairly. It was simply the case that at that time, my life required being involved in a lot more things than it did as my career progressed, at least in the short term. So the point being that if you are deeply engaged in an activity, give yourself a little bit longer in the transition period between them. If you are sort of superficially involved in an activity, you need less of a transition period, but you need a transition period. What should come during that transition period?